Hi, I'm Sally Horwood. I'm the coordinator for the Waiheke Ratbusters. This is an Auckland Council funded community project. So who are we? Sorry, we're just technical. So who are we? This project, like many others, does not exist without its volunteers. Ratbusters volunteers fall into two categories. We've got the rangers of small reserves or walkways. So they're individual ratbusters or perhaps a pair of ratbusters that have for some time been in charge of a particular walkway. Some of them since the onset of the project, which is 6 years. Some of them have preceded the project and have been involved for about 15 years. The other volunteers for Ratbusters more recently are part of a community or neighbourhood group. So since the project onset in 2014, the vision has remained essentially the same. I'll let you read through some of these. The last vision on the list was added by myself in 2018 with the onset of a predator-free vision for Waiheke and then the subsequent funding of Te Korowaio Waiheke. So that is to coordinate efforts island-wide using current best practice, sharing information and resources and working together towards a predator-free Waiheke. So what's out there? As mentioned, this is originally and still is predominantly a baiting project. So these maps featured are off Trap NZ, the Waiheke Ratbusters project. Hence they don't feature all the groups, as some of the larger groups have their own separate Trap NZ projects. These maps are also continuously changing, sometimes on a daily basis. So traps, 18 months ago, Ratbusters had no traps, and now we have 2 exclusive trap lines. And many of the community groups have also offered traps to landowners as an alternative to bait stations. Including traps into the Ratbusters program has meant some changes. So regards health and safety and the hazard register. Things like best practice documentation had to be upgraded, and some of our comms and the frequency of what we do when. So what monitoring do we have? So all of our monitoring is exclusively tracking tunnels for this project. Critter footprints have been collected over 6 years now, each quarter. Only a portion of our bait trap lines have monitoring. I tend to find that monitoring increases volunteer engagement, and those that also have tracking tunnels on their bait lines, we tend to get less turnover of volunteers. Thanks, Wyatt. So this is how it all starts. Coordinating hundreds of passionate volunteers to track on one fine night. Not just Ratbusters, but they're actually Whakanefa Regional Park volunteers as well, large landowners and other community groups will all track on the same night. So the cards go from the bush to the Waiheke Council officers to my place for analysis. These cards are really interesting. They demonstrate the need for regular pulsing ongoing to maintain control. So these cards are all of the same line, and you can see by the cards on the left, which was pre-control, compared to the cards in the centre, which is the same bait line that's been under control, 3 monthly pulsing for some years, that's got beautiful little weta footprints, and right through the centre, some lovely little lizard gecko prints there. And then the card on the right has a lapse of just 1 pulse, and we can see all the rats return. So we end up with some spreadsheets that look like this. These results are fed back to the volunteers, many of who like to guess what's on their cards. I have some that as they pull them out of the tracking tunnels, write in pencil in the corner what they think it is, and then ask me for feedback. I have run tracking tunnel workshops both for the Ratbuster volunteers and for school groups, and this aids volunteer engagement, both the workshops and feedback on their own results from their own line. So I was asked to comment on how did I get into conservation, what was my pathway. The simple answer is via the back door. I would say an ecology degree and then an agency job is not the only way into conservation. So I do have a science degree, though I'm not sure this has ever helped me get conservation work or not. I said goodbye to 20 plus years as a vet to become a zipline guide. What I would notice is that the stunning bush down below me. So yeah, there's a lot of jobs that involve conservation. This was a lot of fun. And I did a lot of different jobs as I transitioned from one career to another. My sister suggested that I was having a midlife crisis. I got to get really fit at the Waiheke Couriers, working with my two best friends. And as we all know, a job is really about the people that you work with. Some jobs can be really shitty, and this is the Ofanaki septic plant, and I was the daily inspector here. I actually loved this job. It was full of science, full of stream testing and tank and water tests and lots of buttons to push and things, chemicals to add. So many jobs relate to conservation and enhance your knowledge. So back to this question, there are many, many pathways into conservation, and I'm going to continue this story later. So, okay, project design. Funding for the Ratbusters came from a rolled over ecological restoration grant. An initial set out was based on documentation and advice available at that time. It was especially based on Mark Mitchell's 2012 Waiheke Island Rat Control Plan and also the Rangihaua Animal Pests Volunteer Guide. I was not the initial coordinator at this time. I actually went to the initial meeting. I was a volunteer, then a subcontractor, and then I now hold the contract for this project. Ratbusters has changed over time. Initially by small annual earmarked reserve extensions, maybe 1 or 2 reserves a year were earmarked to set up, find a volunteer and train them. But I would say that we've significantly morphed in the last 18 months by use of targeted rate or NETAR funding to support community passion. So as you can see there, we now have traps. We had none, we've got about 110 currently. Our bait station numbers have doubled, our monitoring tunnels have increased. Probably the biggest change is in volunteer numbers from an original 20, many of which, probably 2/3 are still involved in the project. And now we have over 600. And we also have the community groups, which provide a new scope for the project. So a few of our pest controlled areas look like this. This is Rangihaua, the Monga, and surrounding sports park and golf course and wetland. But most of our pest control looks more like this. Waiheke has many small reserves and council walkways. Well, this is another example of a council walkway that is linear and subject to constant reinvasion. But now Friends of Te Araha, a community group, halo this walkway, and they surround it, all of these properties here, which has reduced the rat tracking index. And this is one of the beauties of community support. So this is Waiheke Peninsula that I set up pest control in the reserve areas recently. Again, there's small linear walkways. And I set this up in response to a key neighbourhood group wanting to be the first predator-free peninsula on Waiheke Island. In 6 months, they now have 150 devices on private land covering this entire peninsula.
This is Sharon, the coordinator of the Shelley Beach Ratbuster team, or PPPP, they call themselves, the Putiki Peninsula Pest Project. You get to meet some really great people working in community conservation. So volunteers come in all ages and all abilities. So much passion, keen to learn. This is not just a 9-to-5 job for these folks. This photo on the right is my all-time favourite. This rat managed to get itself across 2 DOC 200 plates and is forever known as Panini Rat. There's plenty of opportunity to work with schools. Kids ask some great questions. Questions that you really get yourself thinking about what you're doing and why, and maybe what you could do better. And some of the groups under the Ratbusters umbrella are also very much their own entities, like this group on the left. Their scope is wider than animal pest control. They might be doing a wetland restoration or replanting, weeding. And they may also have intermittently their own funding sources. They have their own agenda, and you need to have respect for that. So coordinating a community conservation hub. Yes, it is challenging, but it comes with huge rewards. So never underestimate the skills within the group. So, you know, the volunteers, but you need to remember that some of them actually might have 30 years experience on the ground in pest control. They might be the CEO of a company, have their own business, and they might just be really observant for things on the ground, which is really important. I always thought it was the 3 C's, collaboration, coordination, communication, but recently I believe it's actually communication, communication, and communication, because actually without that, you can't have the other 2, collaboration and coordination. So back to the question of how to get into conservation. So there's many pathways. So say yes to almost everything. This is Mota Tapu, and it is the worst weed job that we ever did. But even the toughest jobs come with support and some laughs. And at the end of the day, a swim and a takahe. Volunteer, it takes you places you otherwise would never go, and you get to do work that you will probably never do again. And this is the stunning Mercury Islands, volunteering on an Argentine ant eradication. It's fine to learn as you go, do lots of courses. This is a Waiheke Adult Learning Conservation course that happened a couple of years ago, and we stayed over on Motuihi for this. And thanks to Dr. Carola Cullum on the left there, who took this course. There's a few of us here that actually now work full-time in conservation, and it was very inspiring. I would say do outdoor first aid, do grow safe, do chainsaw, do 4-wheel drive certificate. All of these courses do get you jobs. You never know where something's going to lead you. This is Project Jonah course in Dunedin. You notice I'm the only stupid North Islander who didn't consider wearing a wetsuit in February. So say yes to all opportunities. You'll learn, make contacts, and you'll make new friends. Gradually, you'll get to work out what you like to do and less so, and what you like to do, how to do more of that. So whether you volunteer, contract, subcontract, whether you're the weekend ranger on Rotorua or you're there permanently, these are all opportunities, and they're all options. You never know, you might end up with your own John Deere Gator. So this is why we all do this work. And this. These are my 2 favourite Pāteki in the world, and I can say that with confidence because we have such special, unique species in New Zealand. So to find out more about Ratbusters, join us on Facebook. This is an open group, all welcome. Check us out on TrapNZ.
or asked to join a group in your own neighbourhood. So some contact details. And a big thank you to everyone. So acknowledging the support of Auckland Council and the many other conservation groups on the island which are very supportive of the rat busters, and I of them. Special thanks always goes to the volunteers, and thank you for letting me use your photos when I know some of you prefer to modestly fly under the radar. So yeah, big thanks to everyone. Hope to hear from you.